HBO's The Outsider, which is now streaming on Max, is a 2020 TV series about the killing of a child. Or at least it starts out that way. Since it's based on a book by Stephen King, you can be sure that the circumstances of the killing turn out to be extremely weird and unsettling. As a matter of fact, things quickly don't add up for Ralph Anderson, Ben Mendelsohn, the police detective who investigates the case. While he has a great deal of evidence leading him to believe that Terry Maitland, Jason Bateman, did it, after he arrests Terry, he begins to doubt Terry's guilt. This leads to a story that could only come from the mind of Stephen King, involving doppelgangers, whole families being wiped out, and a truth so strange almost no one is able to believe it, at least at first. This article will reveal who the real killer was in The Outsider, as well as why The Outsider wasn't picked up for a second season. What is The Outsider about? The Outsider starts as a straightforward investigation into the sexual assault and murder of 11-year-old Frankie Peterson, Duncan E. Clark. Veteran police officer Ralph Anderson is on the case, and he easily turns up evidence that Terry Maitland, the small town's Little League coach, is guilty of the crime. Ralph arrests him, but Terry continues to insist he didn't do it. He tells Ralph that he wasn't even in town on the day the crime happened. Ralph sends for videotapes of the hotel Terry was supposedly staying in and finds evidence that Terry was there. Nonetheless, Terry goes to trial, and the older brother of Frankie, Ollie, Joshua Wichard, brandishes a gun and shoots at Terry as he approaches the courthouse, before Ralph can take out Ollie. Terry dies, and so does every member of the Peterson family. Afterward, wondering if Terry really did murder Frankie, he teams up with the Maitlands' defense lawyer, Howard Salomon, Bill Camp, Howard's private investigator, Alec Pelly, Jeremy Bobb, and State Police Detective Eunice Sablo, Yul Vasquez. They bring on private investigator Holly Gibney, Cynthia Erivo, who has a very specific, and quirky, set of skills, including a great memory for random facts and fantastic observational skills. Holly starts to uncover what really happened. A supernatural entity known as El Cuco, among many other names, took on the face of Terry Maitland and killed the boy. The entity then hung around as Frankie's family members died one by one due to their grief. At the same time, police officer Jack Hoskins, Mark Menchaca, is marked with sores on the back of his neck by El Cuco. This leads him to become El Cuco's lackey, with the entity hurting him if Jack doesn't do what he wants. The final part of the story starts as El Cuco begins its transformation into another person in town, Claude Bolton. El Cuco hides out in the caves in the area with Jack. But Ralph's group is onto it and plans to take it out. Unfortunately, before they can, Claude's brother, Seal, Max Beasley, tells Claude and, because he's connected to El Cuco, now El Cuco knows too. This leads to a massacre perpetrated by Jack that begins at the end of the 9th episode, Tigers and Bears, and continues in the 10th episode, Must/Can't. While Jack is drunk when he starts taking people out, he's still a crack shot. The first to die is Alec, then Seal. Sablo gets shot in the right arm. Then Andy Katcavage, Holly's boyfriend and a veteran of many investigations, decides he needs reception and tries to take his truck to get more bars, but Jack stops him before he can. Jack then shoots out his gas tank and lights up the vehicle as Howard is going towards it, killing them both. Holly, bereft by the loss of her boyfriend, gets out in front of Jack's shotgun. "Damn you to hell," she screams at him and he drops his gun. While El Cuco tries to get him to continue to shoot, Jack turns away and lets a snake bite him. Jack is in bad shape as he approaches the remainder of the group, but he has enough time to tell them to kill it before he shoots himself in the head. What happens when Ralph and Holly go into the cave? Ralph and Holly go into the cave to confront El Cuco. But the cave is unstable. It's where a whole party of men were taken out by a cave-in that trapped them years ago, so Ralph can't use his gun, or he risks bringing the cave down on them. Holly asks El Cuco about itself, but it doesn't appear to know anything about its history. As El Cuco approaches them menacingly, the real Claude Bolton shows up with a shotgun. Despite Ralph and Holly asking him not to, he shoots El Cuco anyway. The trio survive the cave-in and check on El Cuco's body. Satisfied that he's dead, they prepare to exit. But as they do, Ralph sees an apparition of his dead son. Taking that as a sign, he goes back to El Cuco and accuses him of playing possum. The badly injured El Cuco starts cycling through all the faces it's ever taken on, and Ralph smashes its brain in with a large rock. It's hard to say if this really killed the entity, but it will have to do. What happens in the mid-credits scene of The Outsider? The rest of the episode is spent wrapping up the story. Everyone gets their stories straight to eliminate any hint of the supernatural, and they manage to exonerate Terry Maitland. Then, as Holly's leaving Ralph's house, she tells him that if she had answered El Cuco's question about why she was open to believing in it, she would have said, "An outsider knows an outsider." Everything seems wrapped up with a bow, but the show has one more trick up its sleeve. In a mid-credits scene, Holly washes her hands when she sees someone out of the corner of her eye. She turns, but no one's there. She checks her neck for marks like El Cuco's, but nothing's there either. Later, she's looking at articles about Terry's exoneration on her computer, while listening to music. But Holly said earlier she doesn't like music. And there's a distinct scratch on her arm, despite the lack of El Cuco's marks on her neck. Unfortunately, we'll have no answers because, on that unsettling note, the first season of The Outsider comes to an end, and at this late date, it's safe to say it's extremely unlikely to return. Although it was a hit for HBO, The Outsider was cancelled after its first season despite scripts having been written for season 2. According to an interview with HBO's chief content officer Casey Bloys in Entertainment Weekly, while the folks at HBO wanted to do more, we just didn't feel like we landed on a story that would live up to the first season. While it's a shame the show ended, it's still a thrilling single season of television.